What do you think it is that has made you in recent years into a very controversial figure?
Well, I don't think I'm controversial. I've just given you a book on one of our businesses, the family business, which is a very rare beast. It's been in construction. It's been going for over 100 years. We employ people, many of whom have worked for us for 50 years. It's very much a family affair. And the shareholders, of which I'm now the shareholder after my father died in 2022, we haven't had a dividend out of the company for years, but everybody gets paid. It's in a very volatile business in construction. And at the end of the day, we've managed to keep all these people employed. And it was my father's life. You know, he loved all these people. They were part of his family. And I feel a duty to carry that on. And I think that's the great thing about family businesses as opposed to corporations that are owned by faceless shareholders who don't really care about the staff, then don't really care about the moral basis of that business, which, again, if you're a family business, your staff can knock on the door and come and talk to you. They know who you are. If you're a board where the board owns 1 or 2% of some corporation, it's a very different story. And again, they're all paying themselves more and more. And arguably, in the current environment, they're making less and less profits, a lot of them, unless they're in a situation where they're a monopoly, which again is something I would be legislating against. Monopolies are a bad thing, not a good thing.
So I suppose
competition is a good thing.
What you're saying maybe is that charity starts at the home, and I guess each individual can do something in that respect.
I think charity starts really, Andrew, with the family. The family is the most important bedrock of our society, and from the family comes the family business, comes the whole sort of moral base of our society, which I think the venal left has done their best to break up. You know, the Blairite legislation has been designed to debit the family and credit, as you say, the sort of faceless society in which wrongs and evil flourishes.
So you've had that, and at the same time, an influx of millions of people from different kinds of cultures that don't really work with our own.
Well, I think, as I've said in the past, until really, I treat John Major as an irrelevance. But until 1992, really, we had a pretty stable society, and Maggie left the country in rude health, financially and I think structurally and in terms of self-belief. From then, really, the architects of our downfall are Tony Blair, Gordon Brown, Peter Mandelson, and Alastair Campbell, my old mucker who supports Burnley, who I've not only exchanged words with in my boardroom at Southampton, but also in the Burnley boardroom where he's often to be seen, probably pork barreling a free ticket. But anyway, so no, I think Blair, they had a plan. They undermined our legal system, which I'm happy to talk about. They undermined our constitution, the unwritten constitution that we have. They effectively passed laws like the Human Rights Act, which embeds within it the ECHR. They passed the Equalities Act. That was a sort of Brownite piece of legislation. And that comes on top of legislation passed previously, which again, I think was not good for the cohesion of our society. But the genesis of the real damage has come from Tony Blair. And since then, we have actually seen immigration, which you mentioned, rising very fast. And unfortunately then, when the coalition government of Clegg and Cameron was in power, they did nothing to change that. And then Cameron had his own majority, which he did nothing to change. And again, I'm happy to talk about my experience in Parliament, where again, I think part of the problem is that all these changes meant that instead of Parliament being the sovereign body that governs the country, Blair and Cameron hollowed out the MPs, the gene pool of Parliament. And then you've had a sort of series of what I call expenses scandals, where the MPs, who are supposed to be mini gods elected by the people to represent the people, usually well known in their own constituencies, well, that was historically the case. What's happened is Parliament's actually been taken over by the staff that work in Parliament. So the Commissioner on Standards, who sits in judgment with an extremely opaque rule book, which needs to be radically overhauled. You've got, all of the staff and all the rules are designed to stop MPs being functional. And indeed, the more you do as an MP, and I find this myself because I have been doing quite a lot over the last, whatever it is, 15 months, because I'm not in this to do anything other than change the way we're governed. I give my parliamentary salary to charity. I'm not in it for the money. I don't need the money. I actually, it's cost me money because we can talk about reform and the legal fees, and we're not finished with those yet. So I think Parliament's been undermined by, and really the parliamentary process is a joke now. It's actually the civil service and the permanent secretaries who run Britain, and they're not elected. And a lot of them are extremely woke. They are questionable people in terms of both their morals, in terms of their outlook, and certainly now in terms of the fetters on them, which are supposed to be put in place by the front bench. And our front bench now has virtually nobody who has any experience of running anything. So, as you know, if people aren't held to account, then ultimately they're not elected. They outlive most parliaments, and effectively, therefore, it's them that's governing the country, and it's them that's letting the British people down. Parliament's just a charade. I mean, Parliament is it's a show for the people. It shouldn't be. And really what has to happen now is the MPs have to stand up for themselves and start to actually take back the power that the Constitution is supposed to vest in Parliament. I mean, again, just to give you an example, if Parliament passes a law, but that law is trumped by a global law, like in the case of the ECHR, then our laws aren't any more effective. So therefore, law we pass in Parliament isn't always going to be effective in this country. So we've been undermined by, I think, the people now who, if you like, the administrative structure around the MPs has taken over. That wasn't helped by the expenses scandal, which again, we won't go into that, but I think there were understandable reasons as to why MPs thought it was okay. But in the end, it worked against them and it neutered Parliament. So I think, again, the British people who vote need to open their eyes to the fact that Parliament is just a sort of media plaything to entertain them.
Can I ask you a favour? Please subscribe. 90% of you are not subscribed, so if you sub, it will help the channel and I'll keep making these clips.